Hello, my loyal followers. We need to talk about WandaVision. I am a millennial, and for those of you who are unsure or unclear of what that means, it means that I was born in the mid to late 1980s, and thus, at the time of this recording, I am in my mid-30s. Just so that we're clear, millennials are not children. And we are not the generation that is finishing college and joining the workforce now. That's Gen Z. I don't know what they'll wind up calling kids today, though. COVID kid, quarantine kids. Anyway, you're probably asking yourself what this has to do with WandaVision. Patience, young grasshopper. All shall be revealed. The thing that I'm trying to acknowledge is that whenever I view art and media, my interpretation will be skewed by my life's events. In other words, you might say that I view things through a millennial lens. I think that this is worth discussing because I feel that my generation is criminally underrepresented on the creative end of film and television. So although there are plenty of actors and other entertainment professionals working today that fall under the category of millennials, when it comes to mainstream media, there are surprisingly few sitting in writers' rooms and directors' chairs. Don't get me wrong, a lot of us are doing those jobs on the independent scene, but I've seen very few works of mainstream art that I would say captured the voice of my generation. I just want to reiterate, the problem isn't that millennials aren't trying to work in mainstream media. The issue is that the doors don't open to us as easily as they have for past generations, and as I suspect that they will for future generations. Gatekeepers be keeping them gates, know what I mean? Also, I'm not saying that there are no millennials in these positions whatsoever. It just seems to me that the ones that we do have aren't typically speaking from a strictly millennial point of view. In other words, as a generation, we have yet to find our voice. And that's a problem. And if you're sitting there thinking, hey Alex, you're a millennial and you sure have a lot to say, so why don't you go out and do the thing? Motherfucker, I am trying. It's hard out here for a pimp. So this brings us to WandaVision, the first entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Phase 4. A position it was never supposed to hold in the first place. For the folks that don't cling to every bit of information regarding the MCU with the tenacity of a subway rat trying to bring pizza home for his family, the first entry in Phase 4 was supposed to be Black Widow. But then COVID happened, and since we can't safely go to movie theaters, that means that one of the MCU TV series being developed for Disney Plus would come out first. And that was supposed to be The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But they couldn't finish filming it on time because COVID. So WandaVision officially kicked off Phase 4 because I guess it requires less filming on location than a show like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier would. Still following me? Good. Firstly, right now we're about halfway through the series. This past Friday marks the 5th out of 9 planned episodes. Although, I keep hearing that there's a secret 10th episode that's gonna come out too. And I have to say, it may be one of my favorite Marvel things so far. Well, the first 5 episodes anyway. Also, spoilers! Spoilers! This is your spoiler warning for WandaVision episodes 1 through 5 and all the Avengers movies. Many MCU fans were confused by the preview for this series, because at first it looks like a 1950s TV sitcom, and the last time we saw Wanda, she was returning from being blipped by Thanos at the end of Avengers Endgame. And let's just say that 5 years of not existing had left her pretty pissed. As for her synthezoid friend with benefits, the last time we saw him was in Infinity War, when let's just say that he was having a very bad day. So when most fans saw the trailer for this show, they were like, wait, isn't he dead? And why is it black and white and, like, the 50s? So it's very clear that this show would have an element of mystery to it, and things wouldn't make sense right away. However, fans more familiar with the comics would recognize the visual aesthetic as a nod to Tom King's The Vision, a 12-issue series where the android Avenger tries to leave the world of superheroics and settle down in a suburban neighborhood complete with a synthezoid wife and 2 synthezoid kids. And let's just say that things don't go as planned for the Vision. Furthermore, readers who recall the House of M storyline, published from June to November of 2005, know that Wanda doesn't just shoot weird, mystical red stuff out of her hands and fly and mess with people's minds. Her powers actually bend reality, something that has been largely unexplored in the films up until now. I do find it interesting how many fan theories involve Mephisto and Blackheart, Marvel's parallels to the Devil and the Antichrist, as if they're the only ones who could bring Vision back to life and make all the characters live out an old episode of Bewitched. WandaVision Episode 4 revealed what many true believers knew all along, that this bizarre alternate reality we suddenly find the heroes in is all Wanda's doing, and Episode 5 drives home the point that Wanda may be the villain of this story. There's 4 more episodes left in the series, so we have yet to see how all of this will play out. But I was so inspired by the first 5, I just couldn't wait to give you my thoughts on the series so far.
But Alex, what does this have to do with your rant at the beginning about being a millennial?
Hold on, I'm getting to it. In House of M, oh yeah, spoilers for House of M. In House of M, Wanda, also known as Scarlet Witch in the comics, a moniker that she is yet to obtain in the MCU, has recently lost 2 of her teammates, Hawkeye and Vision. She's grieving the deaths of one of her closest friends and her on-again, off-again romantic partner. Someone who, if I remember correctly and no, I didn't go back to the comics to double check, she was on the outs with at the time that he died. Also, she is a mutant, a member of a group that is hated and feared by most of society. And she is the daughter of a supervillain. And to top it all off, she is losing her grip on reality. And let's face it, if you had the power to bend the laws of the natural world to your will, wouldn't you see reality as just a little wonky? She finally snaps and alters the whole of reality to give all of her friends, hero and villain alike, their deepest desires, including bringing Hawkeye and Vision back to life. What she doesn't anticipate, though, is that Wolverine's deepest desire is to recover his lost memory. So when he wakes up, he remembers everything from both realities, and this begins a chain of events that sees the heroes breaking free of Wanda's illusion and confronting her. Now let's contrast that story with what MCU Wanda has been through. She and her twin brother were born in the Eastern European nation of Sokovia. They were orphaned at age 10 thanks to an insurgent missile and became activists. Eventually, they joined Hydra and were experimented on, which caused them to develop superpowers. They linked up with Ultron, but when they realized that he wanted to exterminate humanity, they turned on him and became Avengers. Pietro died in the battle, and their home city was destroyed, but they saved the world. Wanda moved to America to live in the Avengers facility. Then she accidentally killed a bunch of civilians during a battle with Crossbones, which kicked off the events of Civil War. When the Avengers disassembled, she sided with Captain America and became a renegade hiding from the authorities and some of her former teammates. But she also started making whoopee with Vision behind everyone's back. Then Thanos came to Earth, and to save the world she had to kill her BF. But then Thanos brought him back, and killed him again, and snapped her out of existence. It seems that when the remaining Avengers reversed the snap 5 years later, those who were brought back didn't experience any passage of time. Now, in Episode 5 of WandaVision, we see footage of Wanda taking Vision's body, and she's still wearing the same outfit from Infinity War, just as she is when she confronts Sword and the FBI later on in the episode. To us, the audience, it's been 3 years since Thanos yanked the Mind Stone out of Vision's noggin, and to roughly half the characters in the MCU, it's been more than 5. But for Wanda, it's only been days. Think about it. 1 second she's fighting Thanos, giving it her all, and then she watches him kill her lover. And then the next thing she knows, it's 5 years in the future, and she's fighting Thanos from the past, and she's all like, "You took everything from me," and he's all like, "I don't even know who you are," and then he's defeated. A quick stop off at Tony Stark's funeral, and then it's off to steal her coin-operated boy and settle down in alternate New Jersey. There is one more thing that stuck out to me about Episode 5. We learn the Scarlet Witch's birth date. And she was born in 1989. Now, it doesn't just make sense based on Elizabeth Olsen's age and the dates that we've been given in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. It also makes Wanda a millennial. So what is this? Why is the alternate reality that Wanda has plunged Westview into a TV show? And what does it all have to do with being a millennial? We millennials were teens and preteens during the events of Columbine and 9/11. We joined the real world during a global economic crisis. Many of us had to settle for jobs that were outside of our field of study, and we still couldn't afford to move out of our mom's basement. We have seen our leaders wage war for oil and promise change while delivering little to none. We have had to suffer gaslighting by generations that had it easier than us. The majority of us acquired massive debt while seeking an education that failed to make us more employable. We are overeducated, we are overemployed, and we are underpaid. In our lives, inflation has skyrocketed while wages have stagnated, but no one wants to acknowledge that. And we're repeatedly told that this predicament is our own fault because our parents gave us participation trophies and told us that we were special and could be anything that we wanted to be. No job that I have ever held has helped me get any closer to any of my personal goals. In fact, in hindsight, they've all taken me away from the path that I wanted to pursue. Add to all this an opioid epidemic that has plagued white suburbia, police brutality that has plagued pretty much everyone else, and now a global pandemic that has forced most of the world into quarantine, and a mob of proto-fascist rioters storming the Capitol building, trying to overthrow the results of a democratic election. Bruh, I am tired of living through these major historical events. This is both a personal story and a shared story. This is the story of my generation. And despite what many others seem to think, we are fighting. Every day has been a struggle for us, and I have buried far too many friends for someone my age. I just want the kind of life that my parents had, that the TV of my youth implied that I would have, with simpler problems that could be solved with patience and love and understanding. And that's what I see in Wanda. Not a villain or someone being deceived, but a tragic hero. One who can't stand to keep fighting, to keep suffering such great losses and only reaping comparatively small victories. Someone who just wants to settle down in the suburbs with the person that she loves and start a family, like on TV. Wanda is trying to live out an idealized fantasy of life, the kind that you'd see in a sitcom. That's why the time period keeps jumping. She gave the 50s a try, but it wasn't as perfect as it would seem. Her husband's boss nearly choked to death at the dinner table. So she moved up to the 60s, but then she didn't really fit in. She gave the 70s a try, but things were still just too complicated. So she moved up to the 80s. Coincidentally, if I'm right and Wanda is in control of the time period, what she's doing is exactly what she told the twins not to do. Tommy and Billy, grief-stricken over the death of their new dog, wanted to age themselves up, something they can apparently do at will, but Wanda stopped them, teaching them that it wasn't okay to run from their grief by escaping to another age. But that's exactly what she's doing with the time period of the show. It kind of foreshadows how she told them it wouldn't be okay to bring the dog back from the dead, but then her dead brother returns by the end of the episode. Honestly, I think that it is Agnes who brought Pietro back, but she got the wrong one, which is why it's Evan Peters from the Fox X-Men movies and not Aaron Taylor Johnson. But I bet you that in episode 6, those kids are going to be pissed that their dead uncle is back, but they can't have their dog. Anyway, I'm getting away from the point. WandaVision is only the second piece of mainstream art that I've seen that I felt was trying to speak directly to millennials. But it will be 4 more weeks before we really know what it's trying to say. And just for the record, I did check. And showrunner Jack Schaefer was born in 1978. So she is just on the other end of the Gen X millennial cusp. I kind of feel like she's the elder reaching out to the rest of us to say, I'm here for you and I understand. Do you agree? Is WandaVision a millennial parable? Let me know in the comments. Also, Fun drinking game. Watch this video again and take a sip every time I say Millennial. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, leave a thumbs down. Either way, you should subscribe just to hear whatever I have to say in 4 weeks when the show wraps up. Also, share this video on social media so that you can talk about it with all of your friends. For the New Proletariat Theater, I'm Alex, saying, Excelsior, true believer.